Hi, I'm going to show you how to make these silk ribbon embroidery cyclamen flowers. So I've got some 4mm white silk embroidery ribbon, and I've just brought it up through my fabric and I've just twisted it so that it forms a nice tight little cylinder, and I've made a stitch that's about 8mm wide. I'm now using some 7mm white silk embroidery ribbon from craftyattic.com. We sell all of the ribbon sizes here. I've just run it through the hair straighteners just to straighten out any crinkles, and I'm now going to do a twisted ribbon stitch. So I've twisted the ribbon and I'm now passing the ribbon back down through the centre of itself, and I've pulled it into a little point and just allowed the ends of the ribbon to curl over. So I'm now doing another twisted ribbon stitch in exactly the same way. So I'm twisting the ribbon and passing the ribbon back down through the centre of itself and just allowing the tips to curl into a little point. I'm now bringing the ribbon up through the fabric and I'm going to pass it underneath the little loop that we made with the 4mm ribbon. I just need to straighten this ribbon out so that it's completely open and flat. And you can see now I've pulled it over that little loop. I'm now just going to use a standard needle with some standard cotton on it, just to very carefully do a few stab stitches just behind that loop to anchor the ribbon down, and also to accentuate the fact that there is a loop there. So now I'm going to do another twisted ribbon stitch slightly out to the left, making it so that it looks as if it's the same length as the other petals. Actually it's longer because it's covering the base of the other two. I'm going to do now a couple of little stitches, stab stitches with the standard cotton just to hold those petals where I want them to be. And I'm going to bring the ribbon back up through the fabric again. This is the 7mm ribbon. Sometimes you might need to use a pair of pliers if you're using a few layers of fabric like I am here. So I'm just passed it underneath that hoop again, flatten it out so that it's completely open and flat just the same way as we did before. Pull it up, hold it with your thumb and just do a few stab stitches there just to hold the ribbon in place. I always do all of my ribbon embroidery in white and then I colour it afterwards so that I can get some beautiful effects on the petals. I'll show you how that's done in a moment. So I'm now doing my last twisted ribbon stitch. So just pulling gently and allowing the ends to curl over. And I'm now going to do a couple of last little stab stitches just to hold that top petal where I wish it to be. So there, that's how you form the flower heads. So I'm just finishing a couple of little stitches there just to hold everything in place. Now I've got 3 different colours of Pro marker. These are permanent marker pens. And all you need to do is just touch them to the silk ribbon and the silk ribbon will draw the pigment that it wants from the pen. So I'm using 3 colours here, just going gradually darker towards the centre of the flower or the base of the flower. And you can just allow those pigments just to blend together on the silk. The silk will do all the work for you. If you don't have Pro marker pens, you can use silk dye and just mix up the colours that you want in a palette and just paint it on as you would paint a watercolour or something, so that you can colour your flowers so that they look really beautifully realistic. Now I've got some 13mm white silk ribbon on a chenille needle. Always use chenille needles when you're doing silk ribbon embroidery. They have nice fat heads and nice sharp points for you to use. So I'm bringing the 13mm up through the fabric. I've had to use a pair of pliers because you need to tug it. I'm going to do a ribbon stitch now, but to the far right of this ribbon I'm going to pass it back down through itself, and I'm going to want this to curl in a very specific way. So I've got another needle and I'm just now forcing the ribbon to curl over in the way I want it to. So I'm going to do another stitch right next to that one, again using my pliers to tug the ribbon up through the fabric. And I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before. I'm going to this time go through the extreme left and place it next to the point of the previous leaf bit. And I'm going to curl the ribbon around the needle in exactly the same way. I'm going to leave the needle there actually. That will stop me pulling my next stitch too hard and popping that ribbon leaf out of shape. I don't want to do that. So if I leave the needle there for the time being, that will stop that from happening. So I'm going to do these 2 stitches again to form the next leaf. So once again going through the extreme right hand side of the ribbon and using the needle to curl the ribbon around in the way I want it to. Leave the needle in whilst I do the second stitch. And this time go through the extreme left of the ribbon. And again using the needle to curl the ribbon how I want it to. Pull that tail through safely as well. Okay, so there's my lovely leaves. I've got 2 different colours of permanent marker pen here, soft green and pine. And I'm going to use the fat end just to touch the centre of these leaves with the paler colour. And then just use the thin end of the marker pen to touch the outside of the leaf to colour that. And these pens blend beautifully together. You don't have to worry about them bleeding out onto other things because they won't, provided you don't touch them with the tip of the pen. All will be well. So I'm just going to colour this other leaf now in exactly the same way, just allowing the silk to draw the pigment from the pen, and then using the fine tip of the dark one just to do the outsides of these leaves, the edges. So now all that remains is for me to do some stalks. I'm going to use the same 4mm ribbon that I had to do the base of the flowers. So I've just brought it up at the back of one of these flower heads, and I've just done a straight through stitch to form a long stalk. I'm now going to use just a normal thread, sewing thread, just to tack down and couch this stem firmly onto the backing fabric. You need to use, if possible, a natural fibre in your sewing thread if you're doing the coloration afterwards, because man-made fibres don't take up dyes as well as natural fibres do, and you don't want to end up with a stripy stem. So just make sure that the thread you're using takes dye nicely. So you can see I've done the rest of my stalks there in exactly the same way, using the 4mm silk ribbon. You must use pure silk ribbon to do ribbon embroidery. Nothing else will fold small enough for you to pass it through the fabric. All of the ribbons that I've used here in this demonstration are available from craftyattic.com, and we have different size bundles of all of the different sizes of ribbon that you'll need. There are only 4 different sizes. So there's the finished article. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I hope you have a go at silk ribbon embroidery because it's great fun. Thank you very much for watching this film.